I know by now most of you guys have already seen the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. Everyone's giving it good reviews. I think it has an 8.1 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, but there's a few things I have to say against the movie. Personally, I do not like the movie. The animation was good. It had a really big budget. You know, the Tournament of Power did bring in lots of animation cells. You know, they played it in many countries. But the one thing that gets me about this movie, and that always will, it's the story. You know, originally they fought Broly, I think it was months to a year before they actually fought Cell. But here we are now, and they're fighting Broly after the Tournament of Power, after Frieza gets resurrected, you know. And it just doesn't make sense. I mean, back then Broly fought Gohan at the age of 11 years old, right before he actually fought Cell. And here it is now, Gohan's not even in this movie. They changed the plot line about Bardock. You know, back then Bardock actually went toe-to-toe with Frieza for his planet. But for the same time, they retconned a lot of things, you know. I know this is a new generation, we're getting more animes out there, so they're trying to modernize it for the children. But for the true fans at heart, you know, there's just some things you can't change, you know. I understand that this new generation of anime is starting to become a little more censored, you know. We're getting more animes and shonen, such as like My Hero Academia. You know, it's mainly focused on children, and, you know, despite Japan actually making this movie really good for animation purposes, the way they actually portrayed it is they made it more like a family movie, you know. They had Vegeta go into his different god forms and Broly progress, but that's not how the movie went, you know. In the original Broly movie, which is what I believe to be the chronological version, Broly was a menace, you know. His backstory, you know, King Vegeta was jealous, which is one thing they did get right in the movie, but other than that, Broly was a monster. You know, they were really pushing this narrative in this movie that Broly was a misguided boy, you know. It kind of reminds me of the Hulk, you know. The Hulk has his anger side, but he tries to live a life as a normal man, you know. They really try to push that narrative. Personally, I feel like this movie was actually just, you know, I understand Dragon Ball just got back into its hype. 2013, we had Battle of Gods, we got Fakatsu no F, we're getting this new movie, we had Fighter Z come out, and we have Jump Force coming out next month. But, you know, there's just some things you can't change, you know. They really changed the narrative. Before, if I recall, we had the Saiyans, and the Saiyans, they were a menace, you know. They were working with Frieza, for Frieza, and pretty much they were destroying and conquering planets. But this movie, what they showed with Bardock, the Saiyan lifestyle seemed more peaceful. It seemed more like Frieza was the aggressor and the Saiyans were just victims of Frieza's plot, which wasn't the case, you know. In the original Bardock movie, we had Bardock, you know, if you guys remember, the alien on that one planet gave Bardock the ability to see into the future, which led Bardock to have these premonitions of Goku talking to him, talking about how he needs to change and he doesn't have to be like them. And I thought that was like a really good plot point. But for this movie, the Saiyans, they were already peaceful. They were already living a way of life. They had nothing to change, you know. Frieza was just interrupting their peaceful way of life, as the movie showed, you know. And I remember the movie with Bardock. Bardock actually put up a fight against Frieza, a final gambit, if you will. But in this movie, they did, what, 3 seconds of Bardock actually using his final cannon? But who am I to judge, you know? This movie did sell a lot of tickets. You know, everyone's still in the hype of Jiren versus Goku. But I'm a day one Dragon Ball fan. You know, I've watched all the way from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Super. I've even watched GT. You know, a lot of people complain about GT, but GT actually did it right, you know. If I remember correctly, in the Shadow Dragon arc of GT, we had the Shadow Dragons, and with the Shadow Dragons, pretty much, they were able to, or no, they were the incarnation of all the wishes from the past. And I remember one of the dragons, they were made of one of the stupid wishes in the earlier Dragon Ball. They were from the wish that Oolong made to wish for a pair of female panties. But in this Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, I felt like the the devices that they were using for the narrative of the wishes, it was very disingenuous to the characters. I understand Bulma, she looks young, she had a birthday in Battle of God, so 5 years younger, okay, I understand. Bulma, she's always been that kind of side comic relief type character, and I applaud her for that. But when it comes to Frieza, like, it blew my mind that the creators and animators and the directors of the storyboard would actually push the narrative that Frieza wanted the wish just to become 5 centimeters taller. I feel like that's very disingenuous to Frieza as a character. Frieza throughout Dragon Ball has always been portrayed as this galactic ruler. I understand he was small in stature, but he could still beat your ass. That was the whole purpose of Frieza. The Saiyans, even in their grade 8 form, even in their highest elite class, they wouldn't do anything to Frieza. Frieza was just always that guy. Even on Namek, he was able to take on Vegeta, Goku, everyone. So I felt like that piece of the movie, completely out of context. But then, whenever we get on to the movie, the animation, everyone's always going to talk about the animation. That's the only thing that was actually very good about this movie. With $1 million, $1 trillion, you can make as much animation, but it actually takes a true brain to create a decent storyboard. And I feel like the child marketing and the merchandise really came into play with the fact that they had Gogeta in the movie. Now, personally, I've always been against Gogeta becoming canon because with Vegito, you actually need items to become Vegito. Let's say if Goku and Vegeta are fighting a strong adversary, you would actually need the Potara earrings. It wouldn't be able to give them the fusion. But with Gogeta, anywhere they are, they can just do the dance. Just imagine if earlier Dragon Ball introduced fusion. Against Jiren, we wouldn't need Ultra Instinct. They can just do a little dance and there you go. Ultra Instinct, Super Saiyan God, Gotenks level madness going on. So I personally feel like Gogeta, it really didn't have any context. Even when Gogeta fused, for him versus Broly, if you really go back and watch that, you couldn't really tell who was winning, who was getting the best. They were using the same scatter shot, Kamehameha type moves. He did use the Stardust Breaker, which I understand they were giving a callback to the fans that actually watched the Janemba movie. But if you think about it, this Gogeta, he's a completely different Gogeta than what we actually know. Way back in Fusion Reborn, Gogeta comes out and he does the famous line, "I'm neither Goku nor Vegeta, I'm the man who will destroy you." And then Janemba punches him in the face, he doesn't move, and he uses, I believe the attack is called Stardust Breaker, and he finishes Janemba off, end of story. But in this Broly movie, right when the climax was there, right when you realized your money was worth it, you were all good, final Kamehameha, which Gogeta never used originally. His signature move was always the Big Bang Kamehameha, a combination of both the Big Bang attack and Goku's signature technique, the Kamehameha. And the animation was good. He had that attack fired up. They were using final Kamehameha, obviously, because the gestures for both moves are significantly different. But right when the final blow was about to be landed, you had this, you had the female character of the movie for the Frieza Force. She wished that Broly would return back to another planet, and I didn't judge a book by a cover, so that's why I went to go watch this movie. But when I seen that scene, I stood up out of my seat and I was tempted to walk out of the theater. But, I'm a supporter of the anime community as a whole, so I actually, disengaged and sat back down. But I really felt like the movie, itself, Broly, Gogeta, Ultra Instinct, Super Saiyan Blue, anime, fireballs, Pocky, those will just sell. Those are cash grab items, But by this point, Goku has more forms than Ben 10, you could say. It's really becoming like that. Other than that, I really don't have much else to say about the movie. Everyone saw it. I'm really excited for Dragon Ball Super to come back.